You're listening to the Empowering Process podcast with your host, Gail Kraft. Listen as she holds frank discussions around how your purpose, being present, and trusting your power impacts your life. Whether you're an entrepreneur, leader, or developing your vision, you'll find wisdom and insights you can utilize right now. Welcome your host, Gail Kraft.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming. This is Gail Kraft from the Empowering Process podcast. And I have with me another coach, a dear friend, and it's Aree Bly. Let me tell you a little bit about Aree and what we're going to talk about. So she's an alignment coach for the analytical mind, right? So if you like to put your ducks in a row, she's the one to go to. She's a TEDx speaker and leadership and success keynote speaker. So if you need someone to show up at one of your events, she's the one. Aree is an alignment coach helping her clients identify and develop their unique superpowers so they can create sustainable success for themselves and others. Sustainable is the key word. Alignment is about recognizing where you lead at your best, identifying your next learning and growth opportunities, and exploring how to support those around you. You'll find success, become an even more effective leader, and show up authentically as you evolve through your career. Welcome, Aree. We're going to talk about fear of the future today, right?
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. Yeah, you know how much I love F words. That was in my TEDx talk. And so fear of the future is a fun one too.
Yeah, fear of the future is fun. Oh my God.
Yes.
It's great. It's great. And I'm just going to keep taking notes as we talk. We chit-chatted a little bit about how fear of the future never goes away. And no matter how successful you are, you know, when you look at these people that are, I like to use Tony Robbins because he's just so dynamic and so big physically, yes, but energetically as well. You don't think he has a fear of the future. If you watch what he does before he gets on stage, he's shaking that out. He's bouncing on a trampoline to get his energy up, right? Yes. He's got certain meditation routines he goes through to go through that. And my other great example, and then we'll talk some more. If you don't know who this is, look him up. Sir Walter Olivier. He was a very famous Shakespearean actor, yes, an amazing actor. And he would throw up before going on stage every time. And he never faced the audience directly.
Yes, I never knew that.
Yes. So, yeah, right. So he faced fear every night that he was on stage. So fear of the future is not unique to you. So absolutely, you were talking about facing that over and over and over again.
Definitely. I think anytime you're changing in your career, you know, when you're taking on a new role, or, you know, I was an actuary for 25 years and I bounced from, you know, a fairly comfortable insurance company job to consulting. Totally different skill set. And there's fear there, you know, but it was wrapped in excitement. It's like, I want to try something new. I have no idea if I'm going to be good at this. Let me see. And then we had the opportunity to move to Brazil. Totally different. I grew up in Wyoming. I don't know if you know, Wyoming has like more sheep than people. And I lived in a city of 20 million people. I'm like, this is way out of my comfort zone. Very scared. I mean, you hear a lot of stories about the big cities and they're dangerous. But by facing that, you find so many other elements of, you know, what you're going through that you're like, what was I scared of again? Why did I have that fear? When you're looking back on it, it's hard to pinpoint what that fear was, but it's really taking the initiative, or the I guess being confident enough to kind of step into it and think, okay, if this goes south, which sometimes it does, I can step into the right direction and get on my feet again.
Absolutely. I have a very dear friend who we actually did a podcast on fear, and she challenged herself to do something fearful every single day for a year. Yeah. And so for 365 days, she's a Gail, and my commitment to me was whatever came to mind, no matter what it was, when I woke up, that's the one I had to face. Wow. There was no negotiating, it's a little toughy. She said, you know, at first, it was pretty awful.
Right.
She said, now she is out there. She doesn't care. She really
Right.
doesn't care. She has this incredibly successful authorship business, like for women.
Mhm.
And you join her group. She's got a dozen books going on at any given time. What book suits you? You want to do a chapter? There you go. She promotes. It's always a bestseller because she
Yeah.
doesn't care anymore.
Right.
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 She knows how to overcome her fear and move through it anyway.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Now, I'm not suggesting that we do that.
I love that challenge. I'd be curious, how the fear feels different at the end of doing that for a year than
Yeah.
it did at the beginning. But
Well, I can tell you, so I actually did NLP for my fear, right? And that is actually doing timeline work. So it's going back to the root of fear. Like, where did your inappropriate fear, because fear has its place. You don't
Yep.
want to be walking into the fire going, I'm not afraid of you, right?
Right.
Right. But
Yes.
inappropriate fear, where did the root of that happen? And then through the exercise, release that. And I'll give you the story that happened that weekend. So I'm at a retreat in the desert in the middle of Arizona with some women, a bunch of us I'm driving them to Vegas, and then I'm going home to San Diego.
Mhm.
And we're talking and I'm going the speed limit, I think. And at one point I'm like, okay, I'm getting confused on the roads here. I'm not sure where we need to go. I think I would like directions. Next thing I know, there's the police officer behind me. Now, in the past, I would get that adrenaline rush, right?
Right.
Not at all. None of us, right? We pulled over and okay, we're going to get directions. That's what came to mind.
Right.
Right? Not that I'm going to
Yes.
get a ticket, right? And so the officer came over and license and registration I gave him. And we start with the timeline talk. Gail, tell him your dragon was driving. I'm like, I don't think he'll believe that. So no. Let's do timeline work. Let's go back to when you got gas and recontextualize this so that this didn't happen. I'm like, we can do that in our mind, but I don't think we can translate it to the third dimension.
Right.
Right.
He's still here.
Right. He's still here. Right. He's writing me up. So, and then one of the other women said, well, shame on him for doing this. Let's send him shame. I said, no, let's send him love. Well, here we go. 5 of us. We're going to send him so much love that he's going to be overwhelmed with love. And can you imagine he's going to walk to his precinct and dump this love throughout the precinct, and all the officers in there are going to feel this joy. And they're going, by the time we were done, the whole state of Arizona was going to feel our love, right?
Right.
Meanwhile,
I could
he's
see it
writing
glowing,
me up,
yeah.
right? Right? Because I didn't have it never occurred to me that anything bad was going to happen to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you do timeline work, you're gathering the lesson and the gift.
Yeah.
He comes over to me and he says, I have a gift for you. Everyone in the car, shut up. We're like, what? Let this be a lesson to you. I'm like, oh, crap. He goes, I'm giving you a ticket for failure to obey the traffic sign versus a speeding ticket.
Mm.
I was going 70 miles an hour in a 45 mile an hour zone.
Wow.
If he gave me a speeding ticket, he would have had to put me in jail.
Yeah.
Right? So that was a huge. Then he said, do you need directions? What?
He asked you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I swear it's because I didn't have the fear, right?
Yep.
There were there were not only no negative emotions, but I'm sure he heard us.
Pushing
right?
the positive, yeah.
Right? Pushing the positive, laughing about the fact that I'm getting a ticket. When we were done, we're driving to Vegas, and one of the women says, let's do this again. I'm like, no. But it was so
find
much
another
fun,
adventure.
Gail,
Yes.
right? Let's do something different. The point being, right, the fear was not there,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it would have been inappropriate for me to fear the consequences of my actions.
Right.
right?
Right.
Right. And so, oh, by the way, everyone pitched in for the ticket because it was so entertaining.
Yes.
Right. But this kind of thing can happen when you start to release the fear and take a look at it, right? The fear of the future, that's specifically what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
The unknown is both scary and exciting. You talked about excitement,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And do you know that those emotions are exactly the same,
Yes.
right?
Yes. It's how we respond to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So what are some of the things that you can talk about where you faced fear, that you realized that you were afraid of a choice that you're about to make? And what did you do because you certainly
Right.
didn't do timeline work?
No, I think so. Well, one recent one, I was a very, very shy kid growing up. There was no way you would get me to say, may I have fries at McDonald's, when that's their job to give me fries. And I was absolutely afraid of, putting myself out there. So, as I got through my schooling and my career, I kind of started, getting more confident. But to put me on a stage, I'm an analytical person. I'm a numbers person. I'm not a words person. But when I started thinking, you know what, I think it would be a fun challenge to see if I could do a TEDx talk. And I had an idea, I had a message, and I thought, why not? What's the worst that can happen is one of the ways that I kind of face that fear. I'm like, okay, well, what's the worst that can happen? They could say no. Okay, maybe the worst is that I end up on the stage, and then I have to figure out how the hell to do a talk. But
right.
So there was some of that. Is it Tim Ferriss that calls it kind of fear setting? It's like, okay, what's the worst, and what's the, they're not going to like have somebody come, drag me away and arrest me because I submitted a very bad proposal for the talk.
Right.
So yeah. So one thing I think is knowing what I was afraid of, and knowing that fear is something that you can kind of learn your way out. I was afraid of speaking because I didn't have the skills to speak, to tell a story, to stand on a stage and be comfortable in that space. And so, I thought, okay, well, the worst case is if I get it, I can always say no if I really, really don't want to. But then when I had the opportunity, I was like, all right, well, let's see what happens. Worst case is I'm the worst speaker on the stage. There's there were 12 other speakers. The audience will still be entertained. Right. It's not all up to me. So yeah, so it was all, some of that fear setting of going, okay, what's the best case? What's the worst case? And can I live with both of those? Yeah, I think so.
And it's what, 15 minutes. It's not like you have to fill the whole day.
Right. And I did what I could. Once I was like, okay, I have 6 weeks to the point when I'm on the stage. And I knew what I needed to do to kind of get myself comfortable with that, to do the practice that I needed, to get the coaching that I needed, to get comfortable with how this is going to look, and to be okay with it not being perfect, I think was the other thing.
Right. Ooh,
yeah.
Yes. Perfection. I'm not good enough. I just did a post today about not being good enough.
Right.
Right.
But yeah, because it's incremental improvements. I was not the best TEDx speaker out there by far. I'm very proud of the fact that I did it. And if I ever do another one, it's going to be a heck of a lot better.
Right.
But I did it. I took the first step, and next time I will still be scared. I will still kind of be sitting in the green room going, okay, breathe. This, you can do this, talking myself off the ledge, and then, stepping into that unknown, see how it goes.
Absolutely. I don't know if you're like me, but so I have no problem speaking. It's really funny. I found that out. I'll tell you the story how I discovered that by mistake. But I can prepare until the cows come home. When I get up on stage, I throw the whole thing out.
Right.
Even if I have notes and PowerPoints, don't even go by them. Right. Lots of fun, right? Because I read the audience. right?
Yeah.
And I respond to the energy and the vibes that I'm getting from the audience. So the subject matter and what I deliver, and I will have certain points that I will make, but in
Right.
general, it's shooting from the hip, and I'm good at it. You can, in fact, this has happened many times. First, I used to belong to BNI, and there was one time both speakers didn't show up, and there's two speakers at
Yep.
BNI, and so now you've got 16 minutes empty, right? And so they're like, does anyone want to fill this space? I'm like, I'll do it.
Sure.
And at the end, the director was there, the area director. He goes, I've not been so psyched up. You got me going. I'm going to go out and really kill it today. Right?
Great.
Right? Because I just like, it's better than dead air. Right.
Right.
Whatever I have to say, you know.
And you know that everybody in the audience was like, whew, not
thank
me.
God it wasn't me.
Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you, Gail. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So my fear of speaking. So I was the same way, did not want to be, you know, I'm the backdoor person. You know, I managed the accounting department. I worked in the controllers department at John Hancock, and then ended up in the marketing department managing the trainers.
Yep.
And my boss had all of the regional managers in. So all of the big guys are in for some training. And her trainer that was supposed to present to them didn't come in. And she came over to me. She goes, you're filling that spot today. And I went, no, I'm a manager. I'm not a trainer. I have trainers if you need a trainer. She
Yeah.
goes, no, I want my seniors there. And you need to do this. You know the material. And I'm like, no, don't put me. And she's like, yes, you're doing it. Right. So here I am. I'm in front of these men. I don't think there was a woman in the group. Right.
Mhm.
And talking about insurance. Right. And how do you make that exciting? I made it interesting.
Right.
Right. So I'm drawing on the board. I'm walking back and forth. Now, the first couple of minutes, I was shitting my pants. Right. But once I got out of me, and that's the key, is get out of your ego. Right.
Yes.
Once my ego
Yes.
realized I wasn't going to stop, it let me go. Right.
Right. It concedes. It's like, all right, fine.
Yeah, she's gonna do this, right? No matter what. So, all right, now I'm gonna support her. And that's exactly what happened. And my boss is in the back giving me the sign that it's time to stop. Right. Because I had no plan, right?
Right.
So
you're just
I figured out how to wrap it. She took me on the road with her all the time after that.
Love it.
Right.
Yes.
So, I became the key speaker, and so I used to have like toys I always wore a dress that had pockets, little toys in it, because if you participated, I gave you a toy and you couldn't participate anymore.
Right.
It's to be sure that the audience was paying attention. It's not just a few people answering, and the rest of the group was like, oh crap, she's going to do that. Eventually it's going to be me, right? Only
I'll
me
be
left.
the only one without a toy.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
So sometimes you're thrown into a situation that you're afraid of, and you realize that it's not really a problem for you. In fact, I have a gift for that, and I would never have discovered that.
Right.
If she didn't throw me in and I didn't leave the office. I mean, I was ready to go home. Didn't know.
Yeah.
Right. And then my move out to California, when I lived in New England, right. I planned it. I was strategic about how I was going to do it, how I was going to manage work so that they weren't impacted. And someone came up to me and looked at me, goes, I heard you're moving 3,000 miles away. I'm like, that's true. And he's like, that is so brave. And I looked at him and I said, okay, I'll have clothes on my back because I already have clothes.
Right.
I have a roof over my head that's already planned for. I probably will have food in my mouth.
Right.
What's there to be afraid of?
Absolutely.
Right. right? But
Yeah.
I had gone through, and it never once occurred to me there to be afraid as well. And that's interesting, because what's fearful to you may not be fearful to me, right?
Right.
So never
Right.
discount someone else's fear.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what are some
Yeah.
of the things that when you work with clients, because you approach coaching from a more analytical perspective than I do, what are some of the tools that you bring forth to help your clients get past that fear and take that step?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things, especially since we're talking about fear of the future, is a lot of people are, there's a great exercise, of bucketing kind of what you can control and what you can't, and focusing on the things. But I found a lot of people are worried about the future that they don't even know what it is. Like, it's not tangible yet. So you can't even say, can I control this or can I not?
Right.
They're trying to put their arms around something that doesn't yet exist. And that's so hard because it may or may not exist in the future, but that's where, going back to, like you were saying, like the planning for it, like you can be prepared for something like that might show up. But what can you do today is face what is right in front of you and the choices for what you can control. And do you want to head in the direction of that unknown? Sometimes it's a very positive thing that they want to head for. Okay, so what can you control to make that more likely? Or if it's something that you want to stay away from, how do you plan your path and choose some steps that are hopefully going to move you around, as opposed to having to face it? But it's that getting more clarity on what is real and what is a figment of your imagination right now, because you
Right.
cannot act on figments.
So now we're getting into Gail's woo-woo, because everything is a figment of your imagination, including your memory, because you
Yes.
remember something from your perspective. This is why police officers, eyewitnesses, are the worst,
Right.
because everyone in the room
Right.
will give you a different story,
Absolutely.
right? Because you're bringing
Absolutely.
your own filters, your own beliefs, and I can go on and on. I play the mirror, and it's almost like a devil's advocate, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
And I will utilize tools called quantum linguistics. So it's asking questions in a way that gets your brain like twisted, right? Because you're like, what did you ask me? Right? Like,
Right.
you
Let me think about
heard
that.
me, you heard me, right? Don't try to
Mhm.
understand it. Listen to my words and answer just what I asked you. And in being a mirror, I just did this with my daughter this week. She says, I want your opinion you're not going to get my opinion, but I'll help you figure out yours. Right.
Right.
Right. And a mirror is someone who will just sit there and say, well, what will happen if this takes place? Well, what's the worst that you know about? You mentioned that could happen.
Yeah.
Right. And if
Right.
that happened, what does that mean to you? Is it that important? Are you really
Right.
that comfortable in your situation today? How uncomfortable is this compared to how uncomfortable is that?
Absolutely.
Right. And can you
Right.
find the joy in that uncomfortableness? Right. Because there is
Yeah.
joy, right? The joy of
Yes.
success. I was speaking with a woman this week who's she's got a big weight problem. She wanted to talk to me about 75 hard, and I don't want her to do 75 hard. She will not make it, and she will then feel shitty about herself. And we don't want
Right.
that. And I
Right.
was very honest with her. I said, it's too hard for you to do 75 hard, but we can take components of it and let's see what
Right.
you can do, because success breeds success.
Right.
Right. And
Right.
so
You'll build up to where you can do it.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So she made some agreements. I put her in the group. I said, take a look at, especially there's one woman in there who had the same issue, and she looks amazing. She's still working out like crazy, but she's been working on it for like 3 years now. Right.
Wow. Yeah.
But she's in the group, and she will, post a selfie and talk about, what she's doing. She'll do a headstand in the water at the beach in Florida. Right.
Right.
Right. Look what I can do now. Right.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So I said, just go and stalk these people and see what they're doing. Right.
Right.
But know that they
Right.
did it gradually. They didn't jump into 7,500.
Right.
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 You really have to do it, and you not without guidance. And so we talked about a nutrition coach and a personal trainer, and getting the right people lined
Yes.
up so that you can move forward. And so her fear of the future is not getting healthy.
Mm,
Right.
right.
Her
Right.
fear of the future is not having a future.
Right.
Right. But
Right.
she's so locked into that fear that she is feeding it. And this is what happens with a lot of folks. One of the things that you learn through NLP is you have sub modalities, if you will,
Mhm.
right, that are even beneath your belief system.
Right.
And these sub modalities really determine how you approach things. And so listen to your language, right?
Right.
If you are moving towards a goal, you will get there. If you are moving away from a pain, you will not get there, because here's what
Right.
happens. And we'll use, I'm sorry, Oprah, you're the perfect example, because your weight goes up and down like a yo-yo. And here's why. You don't move towards making healthy choices for my body today. You move towards losing weight. And so if you take
Right.
a look at, and Aree, you love this, if you take a look at the scale, you go up and your subconscious goes, I've lost weight, I'm done. Bam.
Right.
Right.
Right. And then you
Whereas,
end up back where you were.
exactly. Whereas if you're, am I making a healthy choice today? Yes. Am I making a healthy choice today? No. Okay, I want to make healthy choices. And so, no, it's not a straight line, but you start going towards that goal
Right.
because of your language that you're using, but you're
Right.
struggling with the submodality that you need to consciously address until you change that submodality.
Right.
Right. And
Right.
it's more difficult than changing a belief.
I believe it.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you move in, if you have a tendency to move away, motivation can be a move away from pain, right? She was very successful because she moved away from being a black nothing.
Right.
Right. And she
Right.
moved away from that with all of her might and with all of her heart. And she was incredibly successful, and she is someone to admire, but it's from moving away from.
Right.
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 That was her driver.
Yeah.
It can work for some people.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But I do agree with that, because when you're moving, I tend to think in landscapes, like there's a lot of directions you can go. So if you're moving away from one point, you could go to the left or to the right, and that'll take you away from that. But is it really heading you towards where you want to be? So,
right.
If you're looking at that point in the distance, you're like, okay, I want to get there. It's a very different mindset of saying, okay, I could go to the left and then kind of angle around, this circular way. I could go straight at it. You have options to get there, but you're always still have that future in mind. You're not kind of looking at where you don't want to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's really where your focus goes, energy flows, right? It's a fact. We are energetic beings. So one of the things that I see anyway with the fear of the future is fear of judgment.
Yes. Yes.
And that was a big one for me, I have to admit, in my younger days. You won't love me if I do this. Right.
Right.
I'll lose my friends if I do this.
Right.
Right. I'll be alone if I do this. Right.
Yes.
And until I got to the point, well, is this something that's in my heart that I want to do? Am I not doing something that is screaming to me to do because of judgment of others? What would happen if I lost that friendship, that love, that relationship, that whatever? What would happen? Right. And what I discovered is, yes, you do lose them a lot of times. And then amazing people. The friends that I have right now, Aree, you're one of them, who I would never in a million years have thought that I would be associating with this caliber of people. Right.
Oh, I totally agree. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not to discount the people who were in my life during that season. Right. It's that I'm going on a path that's not congruent with the path that you're on anymore. And we were together. I have a dear friend, he says, life is a tree. He goes and it grows, and then the branches go, and then
Yeah.
the branches go, right? He wrote a whole book on it and he hasn't published it yet.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I think that's absolutely true. And, sometimes it is a choice for kind of moving away. And sometimes, I lost a brother when I was 16. Like, my future was one thing. And then because of a car accident, it's a totally different future. You can't plan for it.
Right.
And I wouldn't change it. It's like, okay, I learned a lot while, I had him in my life.
Right.
And I can take that and move forward. You can do that whether you make the choice to move on from a relationship or from, having people. But I think you're right. A lot of times when we look at making a change, to make our future something different, we look at the people around us and, how they're going to react. And we put more weight on that rather than what that change is going to mean for us.
Right.
And that change may well inspire them to make a similar change. It may well bring them along, and it may send them on a separate path. You can't control that kind of thing.
Right.
You could influence, you could share your story with them and maybe inspire them to make a similar change if they're stuck in something. Yeah.
I think I recently inspired someone to get healthy, lose weight and get healthy, because not only did I do the 75 hard, but I continue to work out.
Yeah.
Right. 3 times a week. I continue to watch my intake, and I gained, 5 or 6 pounds while I was on vacation. That's no big deal. It's coming off. Right.
Right.
And to see someone else look at me and say, well, if you can do it, I can do it. I'm like, cool. That's awesome. Right?
Absolutely.
Right?
I had someone say that to me years ago. I did my first triathlon and I was not in the best shape. I was, probably 20 pounds overweight, but I did it.
Right.
And a friend of mine who was incredible shape, he worked out every day. He could do everything. He's like, well, if you can do that, I could do it. I'm like, yes. So go ahead.
Go for it. If this is what you want to do, right?
Right. So that inspiration is huge. And it's, sometimes it takes you to be the first one to face that fear of the future and to be like, you know what? I'm just going to see what happens.
Right.
And the other people are like, oh, they didn't fall off the cliff.
Oh my God.
Maybe I can do that.
In fact, they showed up at dinner, right?
Right.
They didn't disappear. Right. Or, I have a dear friend and I use his analogy frequently now. We were having a powerful conversation. He's an amazing speaker, just like crazy. And he said, Gail, I'm just reaching my hand down. You can grab it anytime.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, I'm coming with you. However,
yeah,
not in the way that he was thinking at the time. And to have friends like that, who, right. And sometimes he calls me and like, I need some counseling. I'm like, okay, what's going on? And sometimes I call him, I need a sounding board. He goes, I'm here for you. Always here for you. Right.
Absolutely.
Those kinds of relationships. And we won't talk for months. And then I'll be like, do you have 5 minutes? He's like, yep, cool.
Yeah.
And he'll drop everything.
Right.
To have those 5 minutes. And he is huge speaker.
Yeah.
Right? And
but it's important to know that we're not alone. A lot of times we see what's coming in the future and we get that tunnel vision and we forget to look around at our allies and the people that either are already kind of ahead of us and that can, give us some tips and help us along, or our cheerleaders, or someone that might lock arms with us and say, let's, Thelma and Louise, let's do this together.
Yeah. Collaboration. And that's, and that's the thing. If you have something that you're looking at, and sometimes the fear of the future is you don't feel that you have control over what's coming.
Right.
I used to say, and I still believe this, but I don't say it anymore, that when you're planning on doing something, making a change, you're in the snows of Colorado, right?
Yeah.
And you make your little snowball, you're planning, right? And you start to roll it and make sure that it's nice and round down the hill, right? Next thing you know that you're beside it, right?
Yeah,
And
it's
pretty
grown.
soon you're either chasing it or it's chasing you, right? But the
Yes.
dynamics changes, it's going down that hill, right?
Yes.
That's the part that scared the bejesus out of me when I used to plan. I know that I'm a manifester. I know that I make things happen. Any company I worked for, if you said, describe Gail, they'd say she'd make it happen. You got something you need done, give it to Gail. She'll make it happen, right? And so, because I'm not afraid of looking at the alternatives and figuring out how to make it happen and what team to bring in. And
Right.
but I am afraid of, once that baby's going, then what?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes when that snowball is going, you may not have made the snowball, but it's going.
Right.
And if you don't run along with it, it is going to run over you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the ability to plan like Aree would, I am again about risk, right? What's the worst thing that could happen and what can you do about it? When you practice these skills, when the snowball is coming at you, you have the skill set to jump out of the way and run beside it.
Right.
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 Or let it go if it's not your snowball.
Right. Step
not
aside.
Right.
Right.
Yep. Not my baby. You go for it. I'm going to do this one over here. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's okay to change your mind at any point.
Definitely.
At any
Right.
point. Right.
Right. There are people looking to grab onto that snowball, and you're
Right.
kind of in their way. You're like, oh, you know what? Your turn.
This is yours. Yeah. Take it.
Tag.
Take it. Yep. It's in
Yeah.
good shape right now. You can do with it what you want. This year is a perfect example of me giving myself permission. At the end of the year, November is when I do my business planning, and I take a look at how did I do, what were my customers, what do I want to change, do I want to continue moving forward, what do I want to do, what do I want to stop doing, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And my pricing, and I changed my pricing. I went on my road trip, and I'm like, yeah, nope, blowing it all out of the water, changing everything.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Just like, nope, completely changed my packages, completely changed my pricing. I was like, no, this doesn't feel right. I'm going to change it to this. So I have 2 1-hour sessions, and I never had single sessions. One, if you want to go and have coffee with me, and we can be like, we're having coffee right now.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to have coffee with me, and we can just talk 3 things through. And the other is my, walk the talk program. And in Walk the Talk, there's a couple of outdoor NLP exercises that we will do that will help you break through whatever is holding you back. You will get a different perspective. So I don't want to say breakthrough. You get a different perspective based on these exercises, but you have to be walking to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So,
and those are things that you hadn't
no
done for a while.
No.
Yeah.
I never did the walk the talk. Never.
Okay.
No, it was one exercise. I'm like, I don't see the value in it. And then I thought, there is value in this. And then how can I do it for my clients who are not physically with me? Right. And I have done that with a friend in California. We've done the video, and with when I was doing 75 hard, right? We walked together, right? I had a walking partner, right? I had to wait for him to get up, but we had a walking partner, right?
Yes.
And he'd be like, man,
you didn't want to walk at 5 a.m.
Right. And he'd be showing me the palm trees, and I'd be, stop it. I don't want to see that.
Yes.
Right. So there are things that you can do, but fear of the future, first of all, don't be ashamed that you have fear of the future. Because we all do every time that you plan. So when I plan doing the podcasting, right, I'm like, who's going to want to listen to me? Right.
Yeah.
And then my friend with the hand down, right, he goes, Gail, you have got to speak. People have got to hear your message. You can stop holding it back.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Right.
Okay, right. But I was doing Facebook Lives to practice, right? And realized that, there are people who need to hear the message that you have, the message that I have. They need to hear it. They need
Yeah.
to know that there are safe cocoons where they can go to talk about it, right? And people who are not going to agree with you, but they're also not going to make you feel bad about what's going on in your life. They will help you find solutions and a path,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
That's exactly what it's about. So, Aree, if people want to get in touch with you, what would they do?
I am very active on LinkedIn. So the best place to find me there it's just Aree Bly, AreeBly. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one out there.
I know you are.
And then my website is areebly.com. You can find me there, or it's also alignmentally.com. It takes you to the same place. So yeah, look forward to staying in touch with people.
Excellent. And so this is Gail Craft from the Empowering Process podcast. If something in this episode brought something up for you, message us and, just leave a message and maybe we'll do a podcast answering that particular issue. If you know someone who could benefit from this, share this out with them. Let them know that this is there. We'd love to hear from you. We thank you for your time. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. Be sure to visit Gail at gailcraft.com to learn more about how she serves thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and goal seekers. And remember, if you like this broadcast, be sure to share and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.